The Occoquan Radio Podcast is a private production and is not affiliated with the town of Occoquan. Opinions expressed on the podcast are solely those of its host and guests. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the July 13th, 2025 episode of the Occoquan Radio Podcast. I'm your host, Ernie Porta, bringing you 10 to 15 minutes of irregular, unscheduled updates on things Occoquan and beyond. This episode will discuss some recent town business, talk about a different mill in Occoquan's history than the one we most often hear about, find out what the heck grist is, and close by reviewing upcoming activities in town. Make sure you don't miss an episode by searching for us on the podcasting app of your choice and hitting the subscribe button. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy this episode of the Occoquan Radio Podcast. I want to thank everyone who participated in Fox 5's Zip Trip TV show that broadcast live from Occoquan's Mill Street on Friday from about 7 a.m. to noon. It was hot out there, but everyone seemed to enjoy themselves, and it was a great opportunity to showcase to a wide audience some of what the town has to offer. Thank you to all the town staff and members of Visit Occoquan who helped guide us through the show, and of course, thank you to Fox 5's anchors, Steve Chevany, Annie Mae, and Tucker Barnes, and all the rest of the Fox 5 staff there who took care of us. This is the third or fourth time the Fox 5 Zip Trip has come to town, and we're grateful that they include us. You can see some of the spots if you go to the Fox 5 Zip Trip website. I also want to offer a quick apology to those of you who made the trip to see the 257th Army Band in Rivermill Park on Saturday, and were disappointed to find them not there. They were all set up early and ready to go, and then at about 6:15 p.m. decided it was just too risky for them and their equipment, given the weather that seemed to be in the offing. That didn't leave us much time to get the word out, so I know some of you showed up disappointed. We're sorry about that, and of course the weather turned out to be fine, which sometimes is the way it goes, even in Australia, as Alexander's mother would say at the end of Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. At its meeting last week, the town council received a report on the results of the recent Riverfest and Craft Show. Staff were pleased to report that the show generated net revenue of almost $48,000, which was more than 28% better than budgeted. And this was despite shuttle bus revenues not covering their costs, which periodically happens with our shows when rain or other weather events intervene. The show also had more than 300 vendors, almost half of which reported that their sales were average or above average at the event, despite the rain interruptions. An overwhelming majority of the vendors plan to participate again in the future. Among changes the staff is reviewing are methods of making sure people are aware of activities taking place in Rivermill Park, continued experimentation with engaging activities like those in Conservation Alley and the Junior Passport program to continue to draw more families to the show, and potential changes to the placement of certain types of vendors. Staff also noted the substantial support the town receives from volunteers, almost 90 for this show, our auxiliary police, and other local law enforcement, responder, security, and traffic personnel who help make the show a success. The town council was unanimous in their praise for the staff and volunteers who make the show possible, and noted the overwhelmingly positive remarks they received from vendors about staff and volunteer performance. At its meeting, the town council also authorized a new trash contract with Bates Trucking, which was the result of a competitive bidding process, and is for 1 year with 4 one-year renewal options. The contract is about $14,000 higher than anticipated, which will require savings in other areas. Trash removal contract costs have been increasing substantially in our area over the last decade, and staff noted that the terms of the town's prior contract had insulated us from some of this for the last several years, but that it was probably inevitable that higher costs would ensue after expiration of our last contract. While no one wants higher costs, one council member noted to broad agreement that Bates has been one of the town's most reliable contractors for a number of years and generally provides excellent service to us. As I have in the past, I encourage anyone who is interested in the various items town staff address to review the town manager's administrative report, which is included in the agenda packet for the first town council meetings of every month, and is thus available on the town website at www.occoquanva.gov. There you will find a wealth of information on what is happening in town. In our history segment this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about a mill in Occoquan, but probably not the one you think. Most of the time when we mention a mill from Occoquan's history, we're typically talking about what we most often refer to as the main or merchant's mill, and we discuss it in the context of the person I think has the most claim to being the town's founder, Nathaniel Ellicott. But there were other mills in Occoquan's history, and interestingly enough, on this date, July 13th, in 1809, so 216 years ago, the Alexandria, Virginia Gazette published a notice about the sale of Occoquan property on which one of those mills used to sit. That mill was owned by Elisha Janney, of the same Janney family that would later purchase the mill complex owned by Nathaniel Ellicott and operate it for over 100 years. But Elisha's luck was not good with this first mill of his in Occoquan. It burned in a fire along with the Janney's house on Thursday, April 27, 1809. According to mill researcher Debbie Robeson, drawing on Mutual Assurance Society policies for mills in Prince William County in the early 1800s, Elisha Janney's mill was a three-story brick structure measuring 44 by 68 feet, which made it a little smaller than Nathaniel Ellicott's nearby three-story stone mill that measured 45 by 75 feet. Janney's mill was located at what is today 407 Mill Street, where the old rug shop used to be, and can be seen marked on the 1804 plat on the parcel to the east of Ellicott's mill. According to the May 2, 1809 edition of Virginia Argus out of Richmond, the damage wrought by the flames that engulfed Elisha Janney's house and mill amounted to $20,000, which would today be equivalent to roughly $522,000. This was apparently a very heavy financial blow to Janney. The Alexandria Gazette of June 12, 1809, announced the public sale Monday next of the schooner Henry and John and the schooner Lark, both the property of Elisha Janney. Then on June 15th, the Gazette reported that based on an indenture duly executed and dated May 29, 1809, Elisha Janney had conveyed, quote, the whole of his estate, real, personal, and mixed, in trust for the purpose of disposing of the same and applying the proceeds thereof to the payment of his debts, end quote. As part of this arrangement to pay his debts, the trust began to sell off Elisha Janney's assets in Alexandria and Occoquan. The first version of the advertisement from 216 years ago today first ran multiple times in June. It reads as follows. Valuable property for sale. Pursuant to a deed of trust made by Elisha Janney to the subscriber for the benefit of his creditors, will be exposed to public sale before the tavern door of Zachariah Ward in the town of Occoquan at 12 o'clock on Friday, the 21st of next month. That valuable mill seat, the property of the said Janney, situate in the said town of Occoquan. On this site was erected about 10 years ago a spacious three-story brick mill house, which ever since has been occupied as a manufacturing mill until about 5 weeks ago it was destroyed by fire. The stonework of the mill and a considerable part of the brickwork still stands and would be found sufficiently substantial to erect new work upon it. Considerable part of the ironwork would also answer for a new mill, which might with these aids be erected in time to grind the growing crop of wheat. The advantages appertaining to this valuable property, which in the driest season never wants water, are so generally known as hardly to need a particular enumeration. Suffice it to state that it is situated in a healthy and flourishing little town at the falls of Occoquan River, about 16 miles south of Alexandria on the great stage road leading from north to south, in the heart of a fine wheat country, and has navigable tidewater to the mill door, where vessels may come of sufficient burthen to carry 400 to 500 barrels of flour. Also, and at the same time and place, will be exposed to sale the tan yard and the improvement thereon, which are calculated for the carrying on the tanning business to advantage, and on a large scale together with a stock of leather, etc., on hand. Also will be exposed for sale at the same time and place one undivided moiety of a tract of land containing about 500 acres, situate on the north side of the Occoquan River, very valuable from the quality of fine timber which it contains. Terms of sale for the real property will be 10% on the purchase money payable within 60 days by negotiable notes well endorsed. For the residue, a credit will be given of 1, 2, and 3 years on equal payments with interest from the date, and a deed of trust upon the property to secure the payments will be required. For further particulars, those who may desire to purchase will be pleased to apply to Mr. Nathaniel Ellicott at Occoquan, or to the subscriber at Bush Hill, near Alexandria. Richard M. Scott, Trustee, June 19. We'll learn more about Elijah Janney and his mills in future episodes. I encourage everyone who is interested in learning more about Occoquan history to visit Occoquan's Millhouse Museum and consider joining the Occoquan Historical Society. You can find more information at www.occoquanhistoricalsociety.org. That's the intro sound for our Rumor Mill Shredder segment. This is where we pay homage to the fact that while for much of its history Occoquan was a prosperous mill town, the only mill in operation today is the rumor mill. Here we take on urban legends, myths, rumors, misconceptions, or other similar topics that need straightening out. Since we're talking about grist mills, this episode in our Rumor Mill Shredder segment will address an oft-asked question. What the hell is grist? You've no doubt heard the phrase, grist for the blank, substitute whatever word you want. Well, what does that mean and how is it connected to grist mills? Oftentimes, grain and grist are used interchangeably, but they're not the same. Grist is the seed grain part of cereal grasses like wheat, oats, barley, and rice that has been separated from its protective casing called the chaff so that it can then be ground into meal or flour. The inventor Oliver Evans, who is well known for his patents on automating mills in the 1790s, and who discussed the Occoquan mills in his book The Young Millwright and Miller's Guide, generally did not use the term grist mill to describe his automatic mill. This was because the term grist mill came to be associated with small mill operations that processed small batches of grain for local farmers, with the mill operator keeping some of it as payment or collecting a fee. Evans's automatic mills were known as merchant mills because they were designed for larger commercial operations in which the mill operator purchased grain for himself and then processed it into meal or flour that he then distributed and sold widely for profit. Evans's larger automatic mill could grind grists and do merchant work. But what of the use of the word grist? Well, the phrase grist for the mill, or grist for almost anything for that matter, means to turn something into something else useful or positive, much the way gristing separates the seed grain from the chaff. If you happen to be interested in Oliver Evans and his Young Millwright and Miller's Guide, you can access it online on the site of the Library of Congress. We have multiple art gallery events coming up in the next week or so in Occoquan. On July 19th, our new gallery, the Laura Jones Fine Art Gallery at 125 Mill Street, will hold an acrylics painting class for youth 6 and up from 12:30 to 2:30 p.m. And then on the 20th, we'll hold a paper quilling basics class from 3 to 5 p.m. On July 19th from 4 to 7 p.m., the Vizia Gallery will hold a painting contest. And on July 21st from 9 a.m. to noon, there will be an ink, pen, and watercolor class with Mike Flynn at the Loft Gallery. And on July 25th, we'll have another trivia night in Rivermill Park, as well as our Christmas in July event. For more information on these and other events, go to www.visitoccoquanva.com/events. Again, that's www.visitoccoquanva.com/events. That brings us to the end of this episode of the Occoquan Radio Podcast. Make sure you don't miss an episode by searching for us on the podcasting app of your choice and hitting the subscribe button. I'm your host, Ernie Porta. Thank you for listening.